Hello again. Welcome to video number 5, which I will title Existentialism. I don't know if this one is going to be as long as the other ones. I'm not sure I have much to say. However, existentialism is a very important thing to talk about in terms of ontology of magic because it's something that has definitely pervaded our culture in general, and I would say even cultures plural, very pervasive in the Western world, and it's really been very influential as to how we see each other, how we see others, and especially how we define ourselves, as in being here now. So I'm not going to go too much in Heidegger and Husserl's phenomenology and Hegel and so on and so forth. I'm just going to comment a little bit on a few key sentences that the French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre, I think in English they would pronounce it Jean-Paul Sartre or something, I don't know. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, who was very influential after the Second World War. And the Second World War was quite a time in the 20th century history. It was a whole question of how could something so evil of such magnitude happen? Because all throughout the Second World War, people did not really know to which extent the horrors of the war were extreme, and did not understand the amount of torture and the amount of gruesome, horrible executions that were going on by the Nazis, but also by the Japanese, also by the Russians, and also by the Americans, and also by the Allies. But of course, we were the Allies, so we were the good guys, right? So our violence was justified compared to theirs. But war is war, and there were a lot of horrors and atrocities committed during the Second World War, and our society was trying to gain some meaning over them. It gave some excellent, extraordinary psychologists that came out. I'm still thinking of logotherapy, but once again, I forget the name of the guy who invented logotherapy. I'm going to have to look that up. Remember to look that up. And so yeah, and one of the voices that came out that really stood out and that really influenced society was Jean-Paul Sartre. He was an atheist, and in his vision, there was no pre-existing human nature. There was no pre-existing nature of evil. There was just the fact that we are here and we make choices and we're responsible for our choices, and we're stuck with the consequences of our choices and the consequences of the choices of others. And because of that, he would say hell is other people. And one of the things that he said was, number one, there's no such thing as there's no such thing as an evil nature. There's no such thing as a good nature. People take decisions, and these decisions have consequences. That the Nazis, they were people who made really, really stupid choices, and there's no grand meaning behind all of this, and there's no grand lesson to learn about this except that we are free beings and we should just make better choices in life. And he went a little further. He said something that existence precedes essence. 3 little words. Well, 5 in French. He would say l'existence précède l'essence. But 3 little words. Existence precedes essence. What that means is that we're here now, conscious beings, and our choices and the thing that exists is what determines who we really are. So we exist first, and then meaning is made up by humans by our choices, and then our identity is made up by humans by our choices. Sartre also wrote, l'être se définit dans l'action. The human being defines himself by the actions that he takes. And that's really something, because this whole idea of I exist, and with my choices I create my destiny, I create my luck, I create my life, I create my identity with who I am, was also taken another way. Because a lot of people say, well, okay, existence precedes essence, but our existence is not just us making choices. We make choices in a context. And so uh, they started adding on to that. What is our existence? Well, we have a particular brain structure, a particular brain chemistry. We speak a certain language. We have a certain religion. We have a certain culture, ethnic background, socio-economic context, so on and so forth. And what happened is that, and this is something that we can see sometimes today in politics, is that the human being is defined by all of those exterior characteristics that are somehow internalized or introjected as, and introjection, I really mean the contrary of projected. You project something on the screen, but introjected, you take those things and you introject onto yourself. And how we come to know ourselves as is defined by those exterior things. Teenagers are a great example of that. They define themselves by the group they're in, the music they listen to, the clothes they wear, and the values that they have, the perceptions that they have, the I would say the cultural background that they adhere to the most, where they are, their language, their religion, sometimes skin color, sometimes ethnic background, sometimes history, sometimes the current nation in which you live. And all of these are, at a limit, they can be considered as external labels. And so you take all those labels and all of those things exterior define me. And I'm defined by these things. I myself was born in Shawinigan in Quebec, and I was born to a French Canadian family where English was a foreign language. One of the rare bilingual Canadians in that area. And I was able to see, the determinisms that, being born in the English community or in the French community could change your perception on the world. I was born bilingual, an English Anglophone father and Francophone mother. So I was a little bit on the fence between these two realities, which was incredible insight in how, exterior things define us, And what's interesting about magic in general is that it has a different ontological viewpoint. Magic is essentially or generally Neoplatonic in origin. So Sartre, when he said existence precedes essence, he was saying that there is no such thing as essence. There is no principle of humanness that exists prior to humanness. He was an atheist, right? Things just happened, and here we are, and make your choices. But Neoplatonism, there's, of course, you have God or the gods, and you actually pre-exist before you exist. So in that case, the body I was born in, with the skin color, the gender, the culture, the language I speak, the languages I speak, the face I have, color of my eyes, so on and so forth. Those, from a magical or Neoplatonic perspective, those are merely filters of the light which is in me, which the divine light inside me, which is who I am. And so if I had been born in Moscow, I would not have been a completely different person, but the exact same principle of who I am, the true self that I am, would have expressed itself in a Russian language and in either atheist or Orthodox Christian religion. And I was raised Roman Catholic in Shawinigan, as many French Canadians are. So essentially, whereas existence precedes essence, he would say that that it is impossible. I could not have been born in Moscow because it wouldn't have been I, because it would have been another existence, and that existence would have created the essence. It wouldn't have been me. There's that I comes to exist when you're born and is built up via all of this existing data. And and this is something that kind of pervades and toxifies, I would say. I think it was, I forget if it was Terence McKenna who said, decolonize your mind. Or maybe it was Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary said something to the essence of think for yourself, question authority. Um, And the whole idea, because of course there were reactions against all of this existentialism that was coming along, it's also the period where Thelema actually came up and started growing again. Because uh, despite all of this existentialism, you don't exist. Thelema has this idea of that there is a true will. Yes, there is a true self, uh, a logos of self that is. That Crowley even wrote that to who the person who is doing their true will has the inertia of the universe to assist them. A possibility of self being here now and being part of this grand logos of the universe. Existentialism is there isn't, so make your own choices. Crowley is also very strong on making your own choices. Though he goes a little bit more into spiritual depth than there is nothing before you're born. So I'm going to illustrate what I'm saying a little bit. Imagine if you have two cats, or you study cats, and you have different types of furs on cats. You have the tabby, and then you have the patch fur, and then you have the single colored fur. And so you say, okay, well, the tabby cats, they meow that way, and the cats which have patches of different colored furs, they meow that way, and then the cats which have only one colored fur, or a strongly dominant colored fur, well, they meow another way. And then you have to tell those cats how to meow in accordance to how they exist. Well, I don't know if there are other cat people watching this video. The cat is going to tell you how it chooses to meow. It's something that comes from inside them that they decide, and they decide to project it onto the world. You cannot make them introject an identity based on external characteristics. If you treat a cat right, you're going to have an influence on its attitude towards you. Of course. Same thing with other human beings. If you treat people well, that's going to have an influence on how they will react to you, for good or ill. If you're treating an evil person well, they'll think they can take advantage of you, and you're treating a good person well, they won't necessarily put defenses up, and they'll treat you well in return. So in any case, it's this whole idea of identity, essentially, in magical ontology. It's something that is starts from a light inside you that needs to shine forth. That will be filtered through your language and through your culture and through your memories and through your personalities. But none of these things are you. Who you are is this ontological point that cannot be touched or reached by methods of, by the methods that we have to think about things, and so on and so forth. there's no touching oneself. There's no, sorry, that was a bad thing. Anyways, there, I think it was Shakespeare that said, the eye cannot see itself; it needs a reflection. This touches a little bit on what I was saying about the ontological point and the intersubjective, emergent nature of reality. Uh, but the self is, I would say, the self is necessarily pure, true to itself, the divine spark, or the point of consciousness in ourselves, so on and so forth. It's something that is quote unquote eternal and intemporal and extremely abstract, and it's something that cannot be touched by anything. You can't, no matter how much you brainwash someone. Or I think it was Oliver Sacks. He wrote a book called "The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat" or something like that. It's an incredible book that basically details examples of brain injuries and how that completely changes a person's personality and a person's way of being in the world, a person's understanding of themselves. Um, and we could say, and this is of course an ontological statement and an opinion, philosophical opinion more than anything else, we could say that that person it did not change who they are at all. It merely damaged the boat they were sailing in. The existentialists would say, well, that person is lost, or that person is fundamentally different now because their existence has changed and therefore their essence, that is, who they are, follows. And I think that's one of the major points of the ontology of magic. When I say it's something that touches upon our humanness, something that touches upon who we really are, I think it's something just like true love or true freedom. Um, it's something that starts with us. It starts with us and how we relate to, uh, well, the world, basically. And it's very, very convenient for the powers that be that magic is just this invention, that it doesn't exist, that it's absurd, because once a person starts doing magic, they consider themselves as the locus of their existence, as the locus of their identity. They belong to themselves, much like the old oracle of Delphi said, "Know thyself, and thou shalt know of the universe and the gods." It's not just know thyself. There's this, and thou shalt know the universe of the gods that come after. And I think it's longer than that. There's an even longer poem about that. Because it's really convenient. It's interesting how Christianity, where there was only one God who gave you the real reality and everything else was fake, happened exactly at the same time, or about at the same time, where Roman government was no longer a republic. It became an emperor, and there was one emperor, one Kaiser, Caesar, that decided, that was the head of the empire, and that was that. And it's also very convenient. There's one objective scientific reality, and those are the rules, and that is that. There is one law that you follow, and the police officers enforce it, and you obey, and that is that. There is one reality. There is only one consciousness, and your own consciousness is just an illusion, and therefore you should just stick with the program and reintegrate the whole one lonely consciousness, the one God that tells you how it is. Well, that's very antithetical to magic. Magic is exactly when the self decides to take its power back, the magical process. And I think it was most well explained by Discordians with their Pope card. You are the sovereign pontiff of your own spirituality. You are the direct link between yourself and the divine, which is why they would say consult your pineal gland if you want to have more communications with the goddess. There is no goddess but the goddess, and she is your goddess. Hail Eris. So the whole point of this is of course is the locus of power. The locus of power is brought back to your ontological point, your logos, your true will, as Aleister Crowley would bring it, and your relationship to the world. I think it was the Russian author Tolstoy. He said, "You want to be happy? Then be happy. You want to do magic? Then do magic. It's part of you. It's part of who you are. You are here in the world. You want to do it ceremonially with all of these LBRPs and LIRH and all of these grandiose ceremonies. Then by all means do. You want to do it quietly within your own meditation? That's great. All of those techniques are fine. But what all of those techniques have in common is that you start as it starts from the divine spark within you. It starts from the heart, your heart. And that's why in Kabbalah, the sphere of Tifereth, which is the sun, is also associated with the heart. It's the light that you have inside you that shines forth. It's your divinity that tells the world who you are, and that your existence is legitimate and is not defined by all of these exterior contingencies that are that encage you basically. And this is not a new idea. The Kabbalists also got it from the Gnostics. The Gnostics, it was they were all talking about this, the people with the divine light that comes from the aeon of aeons just need to continue reascending. Some Gnostic sects would kind of like make the difference between the spiritual and the mental and the physical people. But that was more a cosmological thing. That's, of course, when you try to define too much, you get into technique more than you get into actually talking about things as they are, basically. So this whole idea that we aren't ourselves, we're just something that exists and that is completely meaningless, is of course, I would say, is the erasure of magic. It's the idea that love is just a few chemicals in the brain. The idea that freedom is just a political concept and it can be taken away from you because some government decided to write it in a book and send police officers. All of these things can be taken away from you. Well, yes, of course, there can be an unlimited number of contingencies that can be placed on our bodies. We can be put to death. Does that take away our freedom? Well, a lot of magical authors will argue no. Eliphas Levi, he told a story of a Spartan child that had been taken slave by the Romans, and the Spartan was bought by this wealthy Roman. He said, "You're going to do what I want, little boy, hurdy, her." And we all know of the pedastry that was prominent in the Roman Empire then, and the young slave says, "I'll show you what you bought," and he just skedaddled. He died in the wilderness, but he made his choice. He was free. Or did he die in the wilderness? Or is that the story where he just took a fox and let the fox rip his entrails out under his clothing? Or maybe he jumped out of a window and killed himself that way. I forget. But Livy talks a lot about freedom in his writings and how it is something that originates within oneself and cannot be taken away ever. There is a quote from Andrew Chumley that I wanted to read that I do not have right now. I'm going to I'm going to copy paste it. It's really worth reading. It's the ending of his book Kutu, or The Point. And so yes, so if I go back to this whole existentialism thing, uh, the whole of magic is kind of like, especially the ontology of magic, is kind of like a fight of saying, yes, I exist. Yes, I have a right to exist. Yes, well, I have a right to exist. There is no right to exist. I am here now, and I am a representation of the whole cosmos. Because I am the center of the cosmos astrologically and in the infinite. And here I am, and I am an infinity manifested, filtered through all of these physical contingencies, yes, but they are nonetheless only contingencies, and they do not constitute my identity. My identity is something that transcends that, and I will decide how that true identity, true self, true will, logos of self, self-ontology will manifest and will relate to the world. And magic is just one of those methods that I have to relate to the world. I would say it's the supreme spiritual method, or the most abstract method, or as the alchemist would say, it is the highest subtlety of the self that can manifest itself and can act. It is or the prima materia. It's that which is, and that takes up all of these coats of the planets. Uh, I'll have to explain that a little bit more in detail. When the soul comes down, according to emanationism, it comes down through um, all of these I would say, kind of like the coats of an onion, and each one belongs to the planet. And as they put down the coats, as the soul comes down, it has all of these contingencies attributed to it, all the way down to the material plane. And here we are, with all of these archons and all of these determinisms and all of these, all of these determinisms, all of these contingencies. Trying to move us and bringing us here and bringing us there, and we are moved, uh, we do, how should I say, we do go through all the emotions, and we go through a whole bunch of developmental stages. There are times when, we are bumbling idiots, and there are times where we feel that we are so connected with God that we have everything in the palm of in our hand. And this is why I'm against this whole, there's this meme going around, and they say, reality is this thing that when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. And this I contend, because I don't think that is reality. I would say that's contingency. That's the whole point of relating to the world and so on and so forth, but doesn't go away. Reality is not thermosetting, as Robert Anton Wilson would say. It's not thermosetting, it's thermoplastic. It's something that doesn't have to be imposed onto us so much, because we are indeed magical divine beings, and this exteriorness is completely absurd in a sense. The illusion is not necessarily that we are here now. The illusion might be all of these contingencies that we have because we are here eternally. So before I finish, I'm going to read an excerpt from Mark Twain. And this is actually a very, very good example of solipsism from the Latin solo and ipseus, so only self. And it's something that precedes existentialism. And it's pretty intense. I love it. But I'll tell you the point of why I'm reading it in the end. Nothing exists. All is a dream. God, man, the world, the sun, the moon, the wilderness of stars, a dream, all a dream. They have no existence. Nothing exists save empty space and you. And you are not you. You have no body, no blood, no bones. You are but a thought. I myself have no existence. I am but a dream, your dream, creature of your imagination. In a moment you will have realized this. Then you will banish me from your visions, and I shall dissolve into the nothingness out of which you made me. I am perishing already. I am failing. I am passing away. In a little while you will be alone in shoreless space, to wander its limitless solitudes without friend or comrade forever. You will remain a thought, the only existent thought, and by your nature inextinguishable, indestructible. But I, your poor servant, have revealed you to yourself and set you free. Dream other dreams, and better. Strange that you should not have suspected years ago, centuries, ages, eons ago, for you have existed companionless through all the eternities. Strange indeed that you should not have suspected that your universe and its contents were only dreams, visions, fiction. Strange because they are so frankly and hysterically insane. Like all dreams, a God who could make good children as easily as bad, yet preferred to make bad ones, who could have made every one of them happy, yet never made a single happy one, who made them prize their bitter life, yet stingily cut it short, who gave his angels eternal happiness unearned, yet required his other children to earn it, who gave his angels painless lives, yet cursed his other children with biting miseries and maladies of mind and body, who mounts justice and invented hell, who mounts mercy and invented hell, mounts golden rules and forgiveness multiplied by 70 times 7 and invented hell, who mounts morals to other people and has none himself, who frowns upon crimes yet commits them all, who created man without invitation, then tries to shuffle the responsibility for man's acts upon man instead of honorably placing it where it belongs upon himself, and finally, with altogether divine obtuseness, invites this poor abused slave to worship him. You perceive now that these things are all impossible except in a dream. You perceive that they are pure and puerile insanities, the silly creations of an imagination that is not conscious of its freaks. In a word, that they are a dream, and you are the maker of it. The dream marks are all present. You should have recognized them earlier. It is true that which I have revealed to you. There is no God, no universe, no human race, no earthly life, no heaven, no hell. It is all a dream, a grotesque and foolish dream. Nothing exists but you, and you are but a thought, a vagrant thought, a useless thought, a homeless thought, wandering forlorn among the empty eternities. And that was from Mark Twain, The Mysterious Stranger. It's the end of the book, so sorry about the spoiler. In any case, it's solipsism, and it's a very good way of saying that at some point reality is something that emerges out of the infinity of the infinite potential of the self. And now, of course, this begs the question: does otherness exist? Is this one thing, one thought, the only thing that exists in the universe? Well, if you watched my video on sacred geometry, you know why I think this is not so. But I do not think that existentialism and its derivatives, and its uh, would and this whole idea of this objective universe caging you in its rules and laws and realities is something that is is something that is part of the magical ontology. The magical ontology is, well, it's what I was saying in an earlier video about this whole the tradition that has taken the costumes of every religion and that has expressed itself in every language. And this idea is that you are real, you exist, you are God, you are a magical being, and you have that chance of doing magic, of making magic, of letting the world know who you are, despite all of those filters, all of those labels, all of those things, all of the limits that this intersubjective space, the contingencies that this intersubjective space-time continuum has put on our eternal divine being. So I guess I can leave you on that thought, that the magical ontology is basically saying, yes, I am a mage, or yes, I'm an occultist, I am who I am that I am. And I truly and totally exist, and each and every one of us has that ontological truth to them, and they have the ontological possibility of acting, of being in the world, of doing something that comes truly from themselves, and you have the choice to decide how exactly it is that you relate to the world, ceremoniously through angels and demons, energy, vibrations, um, what have you, herbs, crystals, formulate. All of those techniques are valid because they all come from you and they are all filtered through the system that you would like. So this concludes basically the lecture on magic and ontology. Hope you've enjoyed. If you have any questions, complaints, suggestions, comments, I'd be very, very happy to read them. So I wish you all the best. Goodbye.